Hey guys, it's Rob with StreamerBlog, and I just wanted to show you what I picked up for Black Friday this weekend. It's a 32 gig Apple TV 4th generation, and I picked this up on sale on Black Friday for 112 bucks. Normally it's $149 for the 32 and $199 for the 64 gig version. It's got some cool stuff like an updated A8 processor, 2 gigs of RAM, a new remote that charges via lightning cable, which is pretty sweet to actually get rid of those batteries. So let's go ahead and crack open the box, take a look at what's inside, and see what you actually get with the device. So right when you pop the box open, the player's on the left, the remote's on the right. It's a very nice packaging, just like typical Apple packaging. Some stuff's nice and snug, other stuff like the player is kind of unusual not to see that way, but whatever, it's just a player. So we pull out the power cord. It's a very nice kind of sleek looking modern cord. I kind of like it. And there's a booklet which has the Apple sticker inside and the included lightning cable, which again is to charge that remote up. So let's get that plastic off the device and take a look at it. The back of the device is fairly interesting. We have 4 main ports. You have your power, your HDMI 1.4, your USB-C, and your 10100 Ethernet port. Now what's interesting about this is that Apple chose to use some older standards here, which I'm not quite sure why they did that. Mainly focused around the 10100 Ethernet port. I work in networking, so this is primarily something I deal with every day with cabling standards, but one way the industry is going is that they're preferring wireless over wired, and this is a true example, and this is a fairly depreciated standard. Nowadays gigabit Ethernet is fairly common and fairly run around. So what we have to think about is what's inside of the device. Well, Apple supports 802.11ac, which is one of the newer wireless standards that are out to the public at this time. So in fact, the device inside, the wireless built into this, is faster than the wired connection. Next, I want to talk about the HDMI port. The HDMI is 1.4 standard, which means it has support for 3D and 4K video. But the question remains, why doesn't Apple officially support 4K? On Apple's website itself, it states that it supports 1080p, but HDMI 1.4 is a 4K standard. And with the processor being the same, the A8 64-bit processor being the same as in the iPhone 6s, 6s Plus even, with 2 gigs of RAM, it's almost equally as spec'd, which has no problem both shooting and playing back 4K video. Why doesn't the Apple TV support it? That's one of the standards that have me questioning it a little bit. Is it something we're going to see a little bit on in the future, or is it something that we can expect in the next iteration of the device? I'm not sure. USB-C. USB-C, it would have been nice if we had a full-size USB port, or at least some sort of USB-C dongle that we could connect to the remote itself, because as we know, the remote charges via the included lightning cable. So it's pretty unfortunate that we have to source a secondary device or a secondary charging port to actually charge this. The form factor is quite a bit taller, it's quite a bit fatter, and one thing I noticed when I picked up the box is it was surprisingly heavy. So I might do a teardown on this actually to see what's inside and what actually makes this guy so heavy. I can't expect flash memory to be so heavy, but it does have a built-in power brick, so that could definitely be why. That's why you get the nice little small cord when plugging it into the wall. The Nexus Player compared to the Apple TV. The Nexus Player is definitely a lot thinner when you compare the two together, and I do like that. It does look nice on top of my Xbox One. That sits on my entertainment center, and I also like the round form factor. Now this is subjective, but that's definitely something that I like. I mean, this is a nice disc, it's small, it's flat, the cables get hidden behind this little lip in the back, which is very nice. It makes for a nice appearance on top of my entertainment center. Literally the HDMI cable is completely hidden in there. It's something that you really can't see unless you pick up the player or move it out of sight. The Apple TV, on the other hand, the player, if you don't have it tucked away in a shelf or whatever, you're gonna have the cables stick out, especially if you have a wired connection. I mean, that's just another cable. You could have potentially 3 cables plugged in at once, which could look a little bit ugly. Now, that's not necessarily saying that that's the difference between the Rokus, because the XD and the SE both have, a plethora of places that you would need to plug cables in. Especially if you're running composite cables, the red, white, yellow, That's going to be a lot of cables sticking out of the back of the SE. So it's fairly similar to what you're going to run into with the Apple TV. Size comparison for the Rokus, I'm going to use the SE because it's a newer, like pebble-ish kind of form factor compared to the old like Roku 2 XD, how it's more of a square. I actually prefer this over this, but that's just my personal opinion. So form factor wise with the SE, it's only actually a tad bit taller. You can see from here that they are fairly similar in size. The only real difference is maybe just a few millimeters from this little peak on this ridge over the Apple TV itself. So the size of the player, it is a little bit bigger, a little larger, but that's not something necessarily bad. The tag actually sticks out a little bit further than the Apple TV. Let's talk about one of the key selling points with the Apple TV, the remote. Now I have 3 remotes here in front of me. One is the Apple TV, the other is the Nexus Player, and the last is the Roku remote. I just want to show you guys the difference between the 3, so if you have felt one, you can kind of get a better feeling of the other ones. So this is the SE remote. It's kind of the same out of the other iterations of the Roku remote. There's nothing too special about it. You can see that it is standard AA batteries in the back, nothing extraordinary. The nice tag, the Roku tag, is a feature that I really like of the Roku remote, simply because if it's sitting in the couch, I'm going to find it with that bright purple tag because my couch isn't purple. That leaves us with 2 more. We have the Apple TV remote and the Nexus Player remote. I like the Nexus Player remote a lot, and I actually compare these two together pretty much pretty similarly, and it's not necessarily size, but it's rather quality and feel. Now this feels premium because the glass touchpad, which is up here, the glass fascia, which is nice as well, and the buttons. Now these are nice clicky buttons. They feel nice in the hand. Now the remote actually feels nice in the hand as well. You know, you can definitely hear the clickiness of the buttons. It feels good. You know, they both feel good. This feels more like an iPod or an iPhone rather than the Nexus Player's kind of like fit in the hand, traditional remote kind of feel, which isn't bad. But the whole reason we like the Apple TV, or the whole reason that anyone really wants to upgrade to the new Apple TV, is Siri integration. Now, I have a big gripe because Siri doesn't necessarily go where you want it to. Play Mr. Robot. Then it's going to pull up Mr. Robot on iTunes, but not on my Plex, which I'm kind of disappointed about because I use my Plex a lot more than I use iTunes, but that's just me. Do I like the remote? Yes, I love the remote. I think it's a great remote. It feels great. It looks great. 100% I would buy this remote again, but it's 80 bucks. So if you do drop it, this will shatter. Just like your iPhone screen, just like your MacBook touchpad, anything that has a glass fascia can and will shatter if you drop it. So do be careful if you have one of these, because I know that I've dropped this one several times. I can see little, dings and dents every little small places, scratches. And I don't want the Apple TV, especially being a much more expensive remote, to meet the same fate. So here's the question. Would I rather have the Nexus Player or the Apple TV? And I thought about this a lot, and it's difficult because I own several Nexus Players. I love the device. I use it in a couple rooms, I use it on different TVs, and it's really my everyday go-to player. But I would take the Apple TV over the Nexus Player. If we don't factor in cost, if these were the same price, each device the same cost, I would any day choose the Apple TV. And that's because it meets my ecosystem. At home, even though I use primarily Windows at work, and for my servers and whatnot, I use Windows, but at home, for my personal everyday use, I have 2 MacBook Pros for me and my wife. We both have iPads, we both have iPhones, and we just have more Apple devices in the home that we use on a daily basis. So the screen mirroring and just to kind of tie in with all of the different features in Apple's ecosystem is a little bit nicer with iOS devices than it is with the Nexus Player. Now if you have an Android ecosystem, great, the Nexus Player might be for you. And like I said, I love Android TV. I love what they're doing with the devices. I wish it had a little bit more traction. So if you want a premium feeling device that has some onboard storage and that's really going to tie in with your existing Apple ecosystem, if you have some iPhones or iPads or whatever, then the Apple TV might be the player for you. If you're already heavily invested in Android, an Android TV player like the NVIDIA Shield or Nexus Player might be right for you. For more great reviews and tutorials, remember to smash that subscribe button. Visit us on StreamerBlog.com.